Hey there! Tonight we are diving into the captivating world of the Olympic Winter Games, a universe of ice, snow, speed, and stories that stretch back a full century. From the very first competitions on frozen alpine slopes to the high-tech spectacles of today, the Winter Olympics have given us moments of pure athletic brilliance, bizarre controversies, heartwarming comebacks, and some genuinely strange events that seem almost too wild to be true. Before we explore how extraordinary, unpredictable, and sometimes wonderfully odd these games have been, let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from, or type "It's Your Vibe" to support the 2026 Olympians. Now, settle into comfort, let your mind and body relax, and let's explore tonight's topic together. 1. The first Winter Olympics weren't officially called Olympics at all. They were billed as an International Winter Sports Week, held in Chamonix, France, in 1924. Organizers weren't entirely sure if winter sports deserved their own Olympic Games, so they tested the waters with what was essentially an experimental tournament in the shadow of Mont Blanc. Athletes competed in 16 events, including figure skating, ice hockey, speed skating, ski jumping, and the Nordic combined. The event proved so successful, drawing thousands of spectators to the snowy French Alps, that the International Olympic Committee retroactively recognized it as the first official Winter Olympic Games. It's fascinating to think that what we now celebrate as the beginning of a century-long tradition started as something of a trial run. It's an international sports week that organizers hoped might capture the public's imagination, but weren't quite confident enough to stamp with the full Olympic seal from the start. 2. American ski jumper Anders Haugen competed at those very first Winter Games in 1924 and finished what he believed was 4th place, missing out on a bronze medal by the narrowest of margins. He returned home to the United States without a medal and got on with his life. 5 decades passed. Then, in 1974, a Norwegian sports historian was reviewing the original scoring sheets and discovered a mathematical error. The judges had miscalculated the results. Haugen had actually finished 3rd. At age 83, 50 years after his competition, Haugen finally received his bronze medal in a ceremony in Oslo. The daughter of Thorleif Haug, the Norwegian who had been incorrectly awarded the bronze, graciously presented the medal to Haugen herself. It remains one of the longest waits for Olympic recognition in history, a testament to both the persistence of historical truth and the graciousness of competitors who valued accuracy over legacy. 3. The 1964 Winter Olympics in Innsbruck, Austria, faced a crisis that threatened to cancel the Games entirely. There simply wasn't enough snow. Unseasonably warm weather had left the alpine slopes embarrassingly bare just weeks before the opening ceremony. In an extraordinary mobilization, the Austrian army was deployed on a mission unlike any military operation before. They transported 50,000 cubic yards of snow from higher elevations down to the competition venues. Thousands of soldiers worked around the clock, using trucks, cable cars, and sheer determination to relocate massive quantities of snow and ice to create adequate conditions for skiing, bobsled, and luge events. The operation succeeded, and the Games went on as scheduled. It was an early warning sign of the climate challenges that would increasingly affect winter sports, foreshadowing modern concerns about rising temperatures and the reliability of natural snow. The 1964 rescue mission remains a remarkable example of human ingenuity in the face of nature's unpredictability. 4. When the 1960 Winter Olympics came to Squaw Valley, California, the organizers wanted an opening ceremony that would capture the imagination of the world. They turned to none other than Walt Disney, the master of spectacle and storytelling, to direct the entire production. Disney orchestrated an extravaganza featuring 3,700 musicians performing in perfect synchronization, 2,000 white doves released into the crisp mountain air, symbolizing peace and international unity, and 30,000 colorful balloons floating above the crowd in a display of pure joy. The ceremony blended Disney's signature sense of wonder with the grandeur of Olympic tradition, creating a spectacle that was part sports event, part theatrical production, part American showmanship. It was quintessentially Disney, optimistic, larger than life, and designed to leave spectators wide-eyed with delight. The collaboration set a new standard for Olympic opening ceremonies, demonstrating that these events could be as much about entertainment and storytelling as about athletic competition. 5. Here's a remarkable streak that spans more than a century. The United States is the only country to have won at least one gold medal at every single Winter Olympics since the very first Games in 1924. Through world wars, political upheavals, boycotts, and dramatic shifts in global power, American athletes have consistently climbed to the top of the podium somewhere in the Winter Olympics program. This isn't about total medal count dominance. Norway actually leads in overall Winter Olympic medals, but rather about consistency and depth across the decades. Whether in figure skating, ice hockey, alpine skiing, snowboarding, or newer additions to the program, the United States has found gold in every Winter Games for over 100 years. It's a testament to the country's investment in winter sports infrastructure, the diversity of its athletic programs, and perhaps the competitive drive that keeps athletes pushing for excellence across generations. No other nation can claim this particular slice of Winter Olympic history. 6. Speed skiing was a demonstration sport at the 1992 Albertville Games, and it was absolutely breathtaking and terrifying. Athletes would rocket down specially prepared slopes reaching speeds of 142 miles per hour, faster than the terminal velocity of a skydiver in freefall. The competitors wore aerodynamic suits and helmets, crouching into impossibly tight tucks to minimize air resistance as they hurtled down mountains at velocities that seemed to defy human limits. The sheer speed created enormous physical forces and required split-second balance adjustments. Unfortunately, the sport's danger became tragically apparent when Swiss speed skier Nicolas Bochatai was killed during a training run, crashing into a snowcat grooming vehicle on the slopes. The accident highlighted the extreme risks inherent in the sport. Yet, despite its spectacular nature and the incredible athletic skill required, speed skiing was never added as an official Olympic event. The combination of danger, the difficulty in creating safe courses, and the tragic accident effectively ended its Olympic aspirations, leaving it as a footnote in Winter Games history. 7. At the 1928 Winter Olympics in St. Moritz, Switzerland, spectators witnessed one of the strangest competitions in Olympic history. Skijoring. The word comes from the Norwegian skikjoring, meaning ski driving, and the sport involved skiers being towed across frozen lakes by riderless horses. Yes, you read that correctly. Horses pulled skiers along icy surfaces while galloping at full speed. The skiers had to maintain their balance, navigate turns, and manage the momentum created by a running horse, all while gliding on skis across unpredictable ice. It required extraordinary skill, courage, and a certain degree of madness. The event was part of the Olympic program only in 1928 and has never returned, making it one of the most unusual and short-lived Olympic sports ever contested. Today, it sounds almost absurd, but in the context of the 1920s Winter Olympics, when organizers were still experimenting with what winter sports could and should be included, skijoring must have seemed like a perfectly reasonable test of athletic prowess and coordination between humans and animals. 8. The 1932 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York, featured another animal-assisted competition that seems extraordinary by today's standards: sled dog racing. Teams of mushers and their dogs competed in cross-country events, yet bringing the working sled dog traditions of northern climates to the Olympic stage. Among the competitors was the legendary Norwegian-American musher Leonhard Seppala, famous for his heroic role in the 1925 Serum Run to Nome, Alaska. the life-saving delivery of diphtheria antitoxin across treacherous terrain that inspired the annual Iditarod race. Sepala and his team finished second in the Olympic competition, earning a silver medal. The sport captured the public's imagination, celebrating the remarkable partnership between humans and dogs in extreme winter conditions. However, like skijoring, sled dog racing appeared only once in Olympic history. The logistical challenges of transporting and housing dog teams, combined with the evolving definition of what constituted an Olympic sport, it meant that sled dog racing vanished from the Winter Games after 1932, preserved now only in historical records and fading photographs. 9. The 2002 Salt Lake City Winter Olympics were rocked by one of the most dramatic scandals in figure skating history, centered on the pairs competition. Russian pair Elena Berezhnaya and Anton Sikarulidze won gold over Canadian pair Jamie Salé and David Pelletier, despite what many observers felt was a less polished performance marred by a visible error. The judging seemed suspicious from the moment the scores appeared. Within days, French judge Marie-Reine Legougne admitted that she had been pressured by the head of the French Skating Federation to vote for the Russians as part of a deal to secure Russian support for the French ice dancing team. The scandal exploded into international headlines, in exposing the corrupt underbelly of figure skating's judging system. The International Olympic Committee made an unprecedented decision. Both pairs would receive gold medals. Canada was elevated to share the top of the podium with Russia. The scandal accelerated the complete overhaul of figure skating's judging system, leading to the anonymous scoring system used today. It remains a defining moment in Olympic history, a reminder that even at the highest levels of sport, integrity can be compromised by human ambition and backroom deals. 10. Sonja Henie was just 11 years old when she competed at the 1924 Winter Olympics in Chamonix. The tiny Norwegian figure skater was so young and inexperienced that she finished dead last in the women's singles competition, her Olympic dreams seemingly crushed before they'd truly begun. But Henie was determined. She worked tirelessly on her skating, developing a revolutionary style that combined athletic jumps and spins with balletic grace and showmanship. Her performances brought a theatrical quality to figure skating that had never been seen before. Just 4 years later, at age 15, she won her first Olympic gold medal at the 1928 St. Moritz Games. She defended her title in 1932 and again in 1936, becoming the first woman to win 3 consecutive Olympic figure skating gold medals. After retiring from competitive skating, she leveraged her fame into a Hollywood career, starring in numerous films and becoming one of the wealthiest women in entertainment. Her transformation from last-place finisher to triple Olympic champion and international superstar remains one of the great redemption stories in Winter Olympic history, proof that early failure can be the foundation for extraordinary success. 11. At the 1924 Winter Olympics, British curler Robin Welsh won a gold medal in the sport at the age of 54, making him the oldest male athlete to ever win a Winter Olympic gold medal. Welsh was a Scottish-born reverend and physician who had honed his curling skills on the frozen lochs of his homeland, where the sport had been played for centuries as both recreation and serious competition. Curling demands strategic thinking, precision, and steady nerves, qualities that don't necessarily diminish with age the way pure, explosive athleticism does. Welsh's victory demonstrated that the Winter Olympics could celebrate wisdom, experience, and tactical brilliance alongside youthful speed and strength. His record has stood for a century, a testament to the fact that in certain disciplines, age brings advantages rather than limitations. The image of a 54-year-old man standing atop the Olympic podium challenges our assumptions about athletic peak performance and reminds us that the Winter Games have always been more diverse in their requirements than we sometimes remember. 12. Here's a delightful piece of Olympic trivia that surprises almost everyone who hears it. Figure skating made its Olympic debut not at the Winter Olympics, but at the Summer Olympics in London in 1908. The Winter Olympics wouldn't exist for another 16 years, but organizers of the Summer Games decided to include figure skating as a special event, held at an indoor ice rink while track and field events took place in the summer heat outside. Figure skating appeared again at the 1920 Summer Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium, alongside ice hockey. Both sports proved enormously popular with spectators, drawing packed crowds and demonstrating that ice sports could captivate the Olympic audience. This success directly influenced the decision to create a separate Winter Olympics, giving cold weather sports their own dedicated stage. So, in a very real sense, figure skating and ice hockey didn't join the Winter Olympics, they created it. These two sports were the foundation upon which the entire Winter Olympic movement was built, beginning their journey on summer ice before finding their permanent home in the snow and cold. 13. In 1970, Denver, Colorado was selected to host the 1976 Winter Olympics, beating out Sion, Switzerland, Tampere, Finland, and Vancouver, Canada, in the bidding process. It seemed like a perfect match. Colorado's Rocky Mountains offered world-class skiing terrain. Denver had the infrastructure to support the games, and American enthusiasm for winter sports was growing. But then, something unprecedented happened. Colorado voters rejected the plan. In a November 1972 referendum, citizens voted against using public funds to support the Olympics, citing environmental concerns, the projected costs, and worries about the long-term impact on the state. It was the first and only time a city awarded the Olympic Games had them taken away due to a popular vote. The International Olympic Committee had to scramble for an alternative, eventually moving the 1976 Winter Olympics to Innsbruck, Austria, which had hosted just 12 years earlier and still had the facilities in place. Denver's rejection marked a turning point in Olympic history, demonstrating that host cities couldn't simply assume public support and that citizens were willing to say no to the prestige of the Games if the costs seemed too high. 14. The 1928 Winter Olympics in St. Moritz, Switzerland, were plagued by an extraordinary weather phenomenon that turned the Games into something of a meteorological disaster. Temperatures soared over 70 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 21 degrees Celsius, creating spring-like conditions in the middle of what was supposed to be winter sports' premier event. Ice melted, snow turned to slush, and several competitions had to be dramatically altered or cancelled entirely. The speed skating events were particularly affected, with ice conditions deteriorating so badly that parts of the competition were called off. Yet the 10,000-meter speed skating race had to be abandoned mid-competition when the ice became too soft to safely skate on. The 4-man bobsled event was also cancelled. Athletes who had trained for years in proper winter conditions found themselves competing in warmth that made the sports feel strange and dangerous. It was an early indication of how dependent the Winter Olympics are on cooperation from Mother Nature, and how vulnerable these games can be to temperature fluctuations. Nearly a century later, as climate change makes such warm spells increasingly common, the 1928 St. Moritz experience seems almost prophetic. 15. Norway, a nation with a population of just over 5 million people, roughly equivalent to the population of metropolitan Atlanta or the state of South Carolina. It has won more Winter Olympic medals than any other country in history. As of recent games, Norway has accumulated over 300 medals across all Winter Olympics, dominating in cross-country skiing, biathlon, ski jumping, and Nordic combined. This tiny Scandinavian nation has turned winter sports into a national identity, with skiing deeply embedded in Norwegian culture for centuries. Children learn to ski almost as soon as they can walk, and the country's landscape, vast forests, mountainous terrain, long winters with reliable snow, creates natural training grounds. The Norwegian philosophy of friluftsliv, or open-air living, encourages outdoor activity in all weather conditions, building a population that's comfortable and competent in winter environments. Norway's Olympic success is a remarkable David versus Goliath story. proving that population size matters far less than cultural commitment, proper investment in athlete development, and a society that genuinely values winter sport as a way of life rather than merely a competition. 16. The contrast is striking. At the first Winter Olympics in 1924, only 13 women competed among the 258 total athletes, a mere 5% representation. These pioneering women could compete in just figure skating, with no other events open to them. Fast forward to the 2026 Winter Olympics, and nearly 50% of all athletes will be women, competing in virtually every sport on the program. This transformation didn't happen smoothly or quickly. Women's alpine skiing wasn't added until 1936. Women's speed skating came in 1960. Women's ice hockey had to wait until 1998. Ski jumping, traditionally seen as too dangerous for women, only opened to female athletes in 2014 at the Sochi Games, 90 years after the first Winter Olympics. The International Olympic Committee has systematically worked to close the gender gap, adding women's events, equalizing prize structures, and ensuring that the Winter Olympics reflect modern values of equality and inclusion. The journey from 13 women in 1924 to gender parity in 2026 represents one of the most significant social transformations in Olympic history, turning the Winter Games from a predominantly male domain into a genuinely inclusive celebration of athletic excellence. 17. The evolution of the Winter Olympics is perhaps best illustrated by a simple statistic. The first Games in 1924 featured just 16 events across 6 sports. Athletes competed in figure skating, ice hockey, speed skating, cross-country skiing, ski jumping, and Nordic combined. That was it. The entire Olympic program could fit comfortably into a long weekend. By contrast, the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics featured 109 events spanning 15 sports, including newer additions like snowboarding, freestyle skiing, short-track speed skating, and skeleton. The expansion reflects both the diversification of winter sports and the evolution of athletic culture itself. Sports that didn't exist in 1924, like snowboarding, which emerged from California surf culture in the 1960s, now dominate Olympic viewership. The halfpipe, slopestyle, and big air events bring a younger, more rebellious energy to the Games, contrasting sharply with the traditional elegance of figure skating or the endurance-focused Nordic events. This growth from 16 events to 109 shows how the Winter Olympics have adapted to remain relevant, embracing new disciplines while honoring traditional sports, constantly reinventing themselves to capture the imagination of new generations. 18. At the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, American ice hockey player Jocelyn Lamoureux Davidson achieved something that sounds almost impossible. She scored 2 goals against Canada in just 6 seconds, setting the record for the fastest back-to-back goals in Winter Olympic history. The goals came during the gold medal game between the United States and Canada, the sport's fiercest rivalry. The sheer speed of the accomplishment, 2 pucks finding the net in the time it takes to read this sentence, demonstrates the explosive, unpredictable nature of ice hockey at its highest level. A single moment of defensive confusion, a perfectly timed pass, a shooter with reflexes honed through thousands of hours of practice, and suddenly the scoreboard changes twice before spectators can fully process what happened. The 6-second double underscores why ice hockey remains one of the most thrilling Winter Olympic sports. The game can transform in an instant, momentum shifting so quickly that the outcome feels genuinely uncertain until the final buzzer sounds. Lamoureux Davidson's feat will likely stand in the record books for decades, a testament to individual brilliance in team sports' most pressure-filled moment. 19. When American alpine skier Mikaela Shiffrin traveled to the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, she brought 35 pairs of skis with her. Yes, it's 35. This might seem excessive until you understand the precision required in elite alpine skiing. Different ski designs perform better in different snow conditions, temperatures, and course settings. A ski that's perfect for soft, fresh snow will be terrible on hard, packed ice. The flex, edge angle, and wax application all need to match the specific conditions of each race. Schifrin and her technical team needed options for slalom, giant slalom, downhill, and Super G events, with multiple backup pairs for each discipline. Weather can change overnight in mountain environments, meaning that skis tested and prepared the day before a race might be completely wrong for actual race day conditions. Those 35 pairs represented not excess but preparedness. The difference between gold and silver can be hundredths of a second. It's determined by whether an athlete has the optimal equipment for that specific moment. It's a reminder that Olympic success at the highest level depends not just on the athlete's skill, but on an entire support system of coaches, technicians, and equipment specialists working in perfect coordination. 20. The word ski that we use so casually today has ancient roots stretching back over 1,000 years. It comes from the Old Norse word skid, meaning a split length of wood or a stick. In the harsh Scandinavian winters, people needed a way to travel across deep snow, and they discovered that long, flat pieces of wood allowed them to glide rather than sink. Skiing wasn't initially a sport. It was essential winter transportation, a survival tool in environments where walking through snow was exhausting or impossible. Yet Norse people used skis for hunting, for traveling between settlements, and even in warfare. Archaeological evidence suggests skiing dates back at least 5,000 years, with ancient skis discovered preserved in Scandinavian bogs. The transformation from practical necessity to recreational sport to Olympic competition represents thousands of years of human adaptation to winter environments. When you watch modern Olympic skiers flying down mountains at breathtaking speeds, dressed in high-tech suits and using precisely engineered equipment, you're witnessing the latest chapter in a story that began with someone in ancient Scandinavia strapping split pieces of wood to their feet and discovering they could move across the snow. The word carries all that history within it. 21. Every curling stone used in the Winter Olympics is made from a very specific type of granite, quarried from a single tiny island off the coast of Scotland called Ailsa Craig. This volcanic island in the Firth of Clyde produces a unique form of microgranite that has very low water absorption and can withstand repeated freezing and thawing without cracking or degrading. The granite's density and consistency mean that curling stones made from Ailsa Craig material behave predictably on ice, sliding smoothly and responding uniformly to the sweeping action of the curlers. Only two types of granite from the island are used: Blue Hone and Ailsa Craig Common Green. Blue Hone is denser and more expensive, typically used for the running surface of the stone, while Common Green forms the body. The island has been the source of curling stones for over 2 centuries, and today only Cays of Scotland has the rights to harvest the granite. The exclusivity creates a fascinating situation where every curling stone in Olympic competition shares the same geological origin, making them as standardized as humanly possible, ensuring fair play across all matches. 22. The sport's name, curling, comes from the distinctive motion the stone makes as it travels across the ice toward its target. When released properly with a slight rotational spin, the stone doesn't simply slide in a straight line, but instead curls or curves along its path, turning in the direction of the rotation. This curling motion is the result of complex physics involving the interaction between the stone's running surface and the pebbled ice, the rotation applied by the thrower, and the friction created during the slide. Curlers use this curling effect strategically, aiming not where they want the stone to end up, but where they need to release it so that its natural curve brings it to the intended position. The sweeping by teammates can reduce the curl by decreasing friction, allowing more precise control. The word perfectly captures the essence of the sport. It's not about power or straight-line force, but about understanding and manipulating that elegant, turning path. Watching a curling stone arc gracefully across the ice its trajectory bending in ways that seem almost magical to the uninitiated, you can see immediately why early players chose this particular word to describe their sport. 23. At the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, a Czech athlete, Esther Ledecka, accomplished something that had never been done before and may never be repeated. She won gold medals in two completely different sports at the same games. Ledecka took gold in the alpine skiing Super G, shocking the skiing world and apparently herself. Her stunned reaction to seeing her winning time is one of the most genuine moments of surprise in Olympic history. Then, just days later, she won gold in snowboarding's parallel giant slalom, the sport where she was actually expected to medal. Competing at an elite level in one Olympic sport requires years of specialized training, thousands of hours of practice, and complete dedication. Competing in two sports is extraordinarily rare. Winning gold in both is essentially unprecedented. The physical demands are different. Alpine skiing requires explosive power and technical precision on racing skis, while snowboarding demands different muscle groups, different balance, and different equipment. Ledecka's achievement represents not just athletic versatility, but an almost superhuman ability to maintain peak performance across disciplines. She stands alone in Winter Olympic history, a dual sport champion in an era of ever-increasing specialization. 24. The sliding track built for the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics featured an engineering innovation that had never appeared in Olympic competition before, a 180-degree hairpin turn. In skeleton, luge, and bobsled, athletes rocket down icy tracks at speeds approaching 80 miles per hour, experiencing forces of up to 5 Gs as they navigate curves and banks. This track design is crucial for both excitement and safety, with every turn carefully calculated. The Beijing track's 180-degree corner, nicknamed the Kreisel, required athletes to almost completely reverse direction mid-run, creating a technical challenge unlike anything in previous Olympic tracks. Sliders had to maintain their line through the entry, control their speed through the apex, and exit cleanly without losing precious hundredths of a second. The forces involved in such a tight turn at high speeds are tremendous, pushing human bodies and equipment to their limits. This corner became one of the most talked about features of the Beijing Games, a testament to how Olympic venues continue to push the boundaries of what's possible, creating new challenges for athletes and forcing them to adapt their techniques to unprecedented demands. Yet 25. The 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York, marked a technological turning point that would forever change the Winter Games. They were the first to use artificial snow. Until then, Olympic organizers had been entirely dependent on natural snowfall, praying that winter would cooperate with their carefully planned schedule. Lake Placid introduced snowmaking machines that could manufacture snow even when temperatures were cold enough but natural precipitation wasn't falling. The technology worked. The games proceeded successfully with a combination of natural and artificial snow. Fast forward to Beijing 2022, and the transformation is complete. Those Winter Olympics used 100% artificial snow across all outdoor venues. Not a single flake of natural snow was necessary. This evolution from total reliance on nature to complete technological independence represents a fundamental shift in how we think about winter sports. It raises fascinating questions about authenticity, environmental impact, and the future of these games. Artificial snow requires enormous amounts of water and energy to produce. It has a different texture than natural snow, affecting how athletes perform. The ability to make snow liberates host cities from some geographic constraints, but also disconnects the Winter Olympics from the natural winter environment that inspired them in the first place. 26. Since the very first Winter Olympics in 1924, only 12 countries have participated in every single edition of the Games, never missing one. Austria, Canada, Finland, France, Great Britain, Hungary, Italy, Norway, Poland, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United States. This perfect attendance record spanning a century is more remarkable than it might first appear. Consider the obstacles: 2 world wars that disrupted or cancelled games, political boycotts that kept nations home, economic crises that made sending teams prohibitively expensive, and the simple challenge of maintaining winter sports programs across generations. Some of these countries are small. Finland, Norway, and Sweden have populations well under 10 million, yet they've consistently found the resources and athletes to field Winter Olympic teams. The list reveals interesting patterns. Most are European nations with strong winter sport traditions and reliable winter climates, plus the United States and Canada from North America. Notably absent are many larger nations that came to winter sports later or lacked the consistent infrastructure. This exclusive club of 12 represents not just athletic commitment, but also cultural values that prioritize winter sport across political changes, economic fluctuations, and the passage of 10 decades. 27. Here's a geographic curiosity that highlights an interesting bias in the Winter Olympics. They have never been held in the Southern Hemisphere. Every single Winter Games, from Chamonix 1924 to the upcoming Milano Cortina 2026, has taken place north of the equator. This isn't accidental. The Southern Hemisphere's winter occurs during June, July, and August, which would conflict with the Summer Olympics traditionally held during those months. Additionally, there are simply fewer large population centers with appropriate winter conditions in the Southern Hemisphere. The most viable candidates would be in Chile, Argentina, New Zealand, or Australia's mountain regions. But none of these locations has the combination of winter sport tradition, infrastructure, and political will that Olympic hosting requires. This Northern Hemisphere dominance means that the Winter Olympics operate on a schedule and in climates familiar to European and North American audiences, but potentially alienating to billions of people in the global South. It's a reminder that despite their international character, the Winter Olympics remain rooted in specific geographic and cultural contexts, shaped by the places where winter sports developed and where snow and ice are most reliably found. 28. The 1948 Winter Olympics in St. Moritz, Switzerland, descended into a bizarre controversy when 2 different teams showed up claiming to be the official United States ice hockey team. The conflict stemmed from a dispute between the Amateur Athletic Union and the United States Olympic Committee about which organization had the authority to select the hockey team. The AAU sent one team, while the USOC endorsed another. Both teams arrived in Switzerland expecting to compete, creating a diplomatic nightmare for Olympic organizers. The International Olympic Committee eventually ruled in favor of the AAU team, but the USOC protested so vehemently that the IOC threatened to expel all American athletes from the Games. Ultimately, the AAU team was allowed to compete, but their results were not counted in the official medal standings as punishment for the organizational chaos. The American team finished 4th, but because of the dispute, the United States was listed as not participating in ice hockey at those games. It remains one of the strangest administrative controversies in Olympic history, proving that sometimes the most difficult challenges at the Olympics have nothing to do with athletic performance and everything to do with bureaucratic politics and organizational power struggles. 29. Eddie Egan achieved something so extraordinary that it seems almost fictional. He is the only athlete in Olympic history to win gold medals at both the Summer and Winter Olympics in different sports. At the 1920 Summer Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium, Egan won gold in boxing, fighting in the light heavyweight division. 12 years later, at the 1932 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York, he won gold as a member of the United States 4-man bobsled team. The combination is remarkable not just for its rarity, but for the completely different skill sets required. Boxing demands explosive power, hand-eye coordination, endurance, and the ability to absorb and deliver punishment in individual combat. Bobsled requires teamwork, precise timing, explosive starts, and the courage to hurtle down an icy track at terrifying speeds. And Egan was also a Rhodes Scholar who studied at Oxford, served as a military officer, and later became a successful attorney. His dual Olympic achievement stands as a testament to extraordinary athletic versatility in an era before the intense specialization that characterizes modern Olympic training. No one has matched his summer-winter double gold achievement, and with today's year-round training demands, it's difficult to imagine anyone ever will. 30. Japanese ski jumper Noriaki Kasai is a name that spans generations of Winter Olympics. He competed in 8 consecutive Winter Games from Albertville 1992 through Pyeongchang 2018. A 26-year Olympic career that saw him transform from a young newcomer to a grizzled veteran, while his sport evolved dramatically around him. Kasai won medals across different eras of ski jumping, adapting to changes in technique, equipment, and competition formats. When he began, the sport used different skis and jumping styles than when he finished. He competed against athletes who weren't even born when he made his Olympic debut. His longevity is even more remarkable considering the physical demands of ski jumping, launching yourself off a ramp, flying through the air at 60 miles per hour, and landing with impact forces that test bones and joints. Most athletes' bodies can't sustain that punishment for decades. Kasai's persistence, his ability to remain competitive as the sport evolved and younger jumpers emerged, represents an almost unparalleled dedication to Olympic competition. He became a beloved figure precisely because he embodied continuity in a sporting world characterized by rapid turnover, a living connection between Olympic eras that would otherwise seem completely distinct. 31. At the 1994 Lillehammer Winter Olympics, South Korean short-track speed skater Kim Yoon-mi became the youngest gold medalist in Winter Olympic history on snow or ice when she won. As part of the women's relay team, she was just 13 years old. The achievement is particularly notable because it can never be broken. Following concerns about the physical and psychological pressures placed on very young athletes, the International Olympic Committee introduced age restrictions for Winter Olympic sports. Figure skating now requires athletes to be at least 15 years old by the previous summer, while most other sports have similar minimum age requirements. These rules were implemented to protect young athletes from the intense pressures of Olympic competition and the physical demands that growing bodies might not be ready to handle, and the psychological weight of competing on the world's biggest sporting stage. Kim Yoon-mi's record stands as a historical marker, a reminder of an era when child prodigies could compete at the Olympics before we collectively decided that some protections were necessary. Her achievement is frozen in time, unreachable by future generations who will have to wait a few more years before stepping onto the Olympic stage. 32. German speed skater Claudia Pechstein is a testament to extraordinary longevity in Olympic competition. At the age of 49, she competed at her 8th Winter Olympics in Beijing 2022, tying the record for most Winter Olympic appearances by any athlete. Pechstein's Olympic career began at the Calgary Games in 1988 when she was just 16 years old, and she continued competing at the highest level for 34 years, spanning 9 Olympic cycles. She won 5 gold medals, 2 silver, and 2 bronze across her career, with victories spread across 3 different decades. Speed skating is a sport that demands explosive power, aerobic endurance, and technical precision, qualities that typically decline with age. The fact that Pechstein remained competitive against athletes literally half her age speaks to her dedication to training, her understanding of technique and race strategy, and, perhaps, favorable genetics that allowed her body to withstand decades of high-intensity training. Her 8 Olympic appearances represent more than just athletic longevity. They represent a lifetime dedicated to a single sport, watched Olympics evolve, rules change, and entire generations of competitors come and go while she remained a constant presence on the ice. 33. The 1968 Winter Olympics in Grenoble, France, marked a technological breakthrough that transformed how the world experienced the Games. They were the first Winter Olympics broadcast in color television. Prior to this, viewers watched Olympic competition in black and white, unable to see the vibrant colors of national flags, the costumes of figure skaters, or the brilliant blue of mountain skies. The introduction of color broadcasting fundamentally changed the spectator experience, making the Winter Olympics more visually spectacular and engaging. Viewers could now see the red suits of the Swiss ski team, the intricate designs on figure skating costumes, and the way sunlight glinted off ice and snow. The technology also coincided with increasing television ownership worldwide, bringing the Olympics into millions more homes than ever before. Grenoble 1968 represented a turning point where the Winter Olympics became truly global television events, accessible and visually stunning to audiences far from the alpine venues. The combination of color broadcasting and satellite technology meant that someone in Tokyo or New York could experience the Games almost as vividly as someone sitting in the stands, democratizing access to Olympic moments and creating shared global experiences that defined sports broadcasting for generations to come. 34. At the 1984 Winter Olympics in Sarajevo, American alpine skiers Phil and Steve Mare accomplished something that seems almost scripted for Hollywood. The twin brothers finished first and second in the slalom event, making them the first twins to finish 1-2 in any Olympic competition. Phil, the older twin by 4 minutes, took gold, while Steve earned silver. The achievement was even more remarkable considering both brothers had overcome serious injuries earlier in their careers. They had grown up skiing together in Washington State, trained together, pushed each other to improve, and then stood together on the Olympic podium. The image of identical twins occupying the top 2 spots on the medal stand captured the public imagination. It was a perfect story about family, competition, and shared excellence. Yet the fact that they competed in individual events made it even more special. There was no team structure to rely on, just 2 brothers who happened to be among the best alpine skiers in the world at the same moment. Their achievement remains unique in Winter Olympic history, a beautiful intersection of genetics, shared environment, mutual support, and individual talent that produced an unforgettable Olympic moment. 35. East German athlete Christa Luding-Rothenberger achieved one of the most unusual double championships in Olympic history. In 1988, she won medals at both the Winter Olympics in Calgary and the Summer Olympics in Seoul, the same calendar year. At the Winter Games, she won gold in speed skating's 1,000 meters and silver in the 500 meters. Then, later that same year, she competed in cycling at the Summer Olympics, winning a silver medal in the sprint event. This remarkable double is no longer possible because of how the Olympic calendar has been restructured. Before 1994, both Summer and Winter Olympics occurred in the same year. After the International Olympic Committee decided to stagger them, holding Winter and Summer Games 2 years apart on alternating even numbered years, no athlete could ever again compete at both Olympics in a single calendar year. Luding-Rothenberger's achievement is thus permanently sealed in history, an artifact from a different era of Olympic scheduling. Her success also demonstrated the physical connections between cycling and speed skating. Both sports require explosive leg power, aerobic capacity, and the ability to maintain perfect form while generating maximum force. She remains the only athlete to win medals at both Summer and Winter Olympics in the same year. 36. The 1924 Winter Olympics in Chamonix featured one of the strangest medal ceremonies in Olympic history. Gold medals were awarded to the members of the 1922 British Mount Everest expedition for alpinism, mountaineering. The Olympic program at that time included medals for various arts and cultural achievements, alongside athletic competitions, and the expedition's attempt to summit the world's highest peak was considered worthy of Olympic recognition, even though the climbers hadn't actually reached Everest's summit. They had climbed to over 27,000 feet before being forced back by brutal conditions. But the International Olympic Committee deemed the effort and achievement sufficiently impressive to warrant gold medals. This seems bizarre by modern standards, where Olympic medals are exclusively awarded for competitive sporting events with clear rules and measurable outcomes. The 1924 decision reflected a broader interpretation of what constituted Olympic achievement, encompassing exploration and mountaineering endeavor alongside traditional sports. The practice of awarding Olympic medals for mountaineering expeditions was short-lived, and today it stands as a curious footnote in Olympic history, a reminder that the Games were once more flexible and experimental in defining what deserved recognition on the podium. 37. France has the distinction of hosting the very first Winter Olympics in 1924 in the alpine resort town of Chamonix. The French were proud to showcase their mountain sports heritage and their beautiful alpine scenery to the world, and organizing a successful event that established the template for Winter Games to come. Yet despite being the host nation, despite competing on home snow and ice, France failed to win a single gold medal at those inaugural Winter Olympics. They won 3 silver medals and 3 bronze medals, respectable results that showed competitive strength, but gold eluded them entirely. It must have been a bittersweet experience, organizing a successful international sporting event that helped create a new Olympic tradition, yet watching athletes from Norway, Finland, the United States, and other nations claim the top spots on French podiums. The situation mirrors some modern Olympic experiences where host nations invest heavily in facilities and organization, but don't necessarily achieve their best athletic performances. The pressure of hosting, or the distraction of organizational responsibilities, or simply the randomness of athletic performance can work against home teams. France would have to wait for future Winter Olympics to claim the gold medals that eluded them on their own soil in 1924. 38. American speed skater Eric Heiden delivered one of the most dominant individual performances in Olympic history at the 1980 Lake Placid Winter Games. He entered 5 individual speed skating events: the 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,500 meters, 5,000 meters, and 10,000 meters, and won gold in every single one. Not just one, but set 4 Olympic records and 1 world record in the process. To understand how extraordinary this is, consider that these races demand different physiological capabilities. The 500-meter sprint requires explosive power and anaerobic capacity, while the 10,000-meter race demands aerobic endurance and sustained effort over more than 13 minutes of skating. Most speed skaters specialize in either sprints or distance events because the training requirements are so different. Heiden excelled at all distances, displaying a versatility that's virtually unmatched. His 5 gold medals in individual events at a single Winter Olympics remains a record. He became an instant American sports icon, appearing on the cover of Sports Illustrated and achieving celebrity status rarely seen for Winter Olympic athletes. After his Olympic triumph, Heiden retired from speed skating, pursued medicine, and became an orthopedic surgeon, proving that his excellence extended beyond the ice. 39. At the 1964 Winter Olympics in Innsbruck, and Soviet speed skater Lydia Skoblikova achieved a clean sweep that parallels Eric Heiden's later accomplishment. She won all 4 women's speed skating events: the 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,500 meters, and 3,000 meters. Like Heiden's achievement, this required mastery across different race distances with different physical demands. Skoblikova's dominance was so complete that she won the 1,500 meters by 5 seconds, an enormous margin in speed skating where races are often decided by hundredths of a second. Her success built on her previous Olympic experience. She had won 2 gold medals at the 1960 Games, making her a 6-time Olympic gold medalist overall. Skoblikova's achievements came during an era when Soviet athletes dominated many Winter Olympic sports, backed by state-supported training programs that identified talented athletes young and gave them resources to develop their abilities. Her clean sweep in Innsbruck demonstrated not just individual talent, but the effectiveness of systematic athletic development. Skoblikova became a national hero in the Soviet Union and remains one of the most decorated Winter Olympians in history. Her achievements a testament to both personal excellence and the athletic programs that supported her rise to the top of her sport. 40. The 1964 Winter Olympics in Innsbruck were marred by tragedy before they even officially began. During a pre-Olympic training run on the newly constructed luge track, British-Australian slider Kazimierz Kai Skrzypecki was killed in a crash, becoming the first luge athlete to die in Olympic-related activity. The accident happened during an official training session just days before the opening ceremony, when Kai Skrzypecki lost control on one of the track's challenging turns and was thrown from his sled, suffering fatal injuries. The death cast a shadow over the Games and immediately raised questions about the safety of luge, which was making its Olympic debut as a medal sport. The incident highlighted the extreme dangers inherent in a sport where athletes ride tiny sleds down icy tracks at speeds approaching 80 miles per hour with virtually no protection. Luge officials responded by implementing new safety protocols and track design standards, but the tragedy was a harsh reminder that Olympic sports, particularly sliding sports, carry genuine risks. The accident gave luge negative publicity just as it was trying to establish itself on the Olympic program, and safety concerns would continue to follow the sport throughout its Olympic history, including a fatal crash during training at the 2010 Vancouver Games. 41. Ski ballet was exactly what it sounds like. Figure skating performed on skis, on snow instead of ice. The sport combined skiing, acrobatics, and choreographed dance movements set to music, with athletes performing spins, jumps, and graceful movements down a gentle slope. Competitors wore colorful costumes, selected dramatic music, and created elaborate routines that were judged on technical difficulty and artistic impression, much like figure skating. Ski ballet appeared as a demonstration sport at the 1988 Calgary Winter Olympics and, again, at the 1992 Albertville Games, giving it a chance to prove itself worthy of full Olympic status. Spectators were fascinated by the unusual combination of skiing prowess and balletic artistry. Athletes performed upside-down aerials, backward skiing sequences, and synchronized movements that seemed impossible on skis. Despite its visual appeal and the genuine athletic skill required, ski ballet never achieved full Olympic recognition. The sport faded from prominence in the late 1990s, becoming a quirky footnote in Winter Olympic history. Today, ski ballet exists mostly in archival footage and in the memories of those who competed in or watched this brief, beautiful, and slightly absurd fusion of winter sport and dance. 42. The 1998 Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan, carried a staggering price tag of approximately $12.5 billion, making them among the most expensive Winter Games ever hosted. A significant portion of that enormous cost went toward infrastructure development that had little to do with sports facilities. The Japanese government extended the Nagano Shinkansen, the famous bullet train line from Tokyo to Nagano specifically to serve the Olympics, a massive engineering project that involved tunneling through mountains and building entirely new rail infrastructure. The high-speed train connection reduced travel time from Tokyo to Nagano from over 4 hours to just 90 minutes, making the Olympic venues accessible to day trippers from Japan's capital. While the Olympic facilities themselves were important, this transportation infrastructure represented the largest single investment. The extension permanently transformed Nagano's connectivity to the rest of Japan, turning the relatively remote mountain region into a viable destination for tourism and business. Yes, this pattern of using Olympics to justify major infrastructure investments is common among host cities, though the economic wisdom of such spending remains debated. Nagano's bullet train extension continues serving travelers decades after the Olympic flame was extinguished, perhaps the most lasting legacy of those expensive games. 43. The 1998 Nagano Winter Olympics marked another significant milestone. They were the first Winter Games to include National Hockey League players. Prior to this, Olympic hockey tournaments featured amateur or semi-professional players, with NHL athletes sitting out because the league's season overlapped with the Winter Olympics. The NHL agreed to a 2-week pause in its schedule to allow its players to represent their countries in Nagano, transforming Olympic hockey into a true showcase of the world's best players. The change dramatically elevated the competition level and international interest. Fans could finally watch Sidney Crosby, Alexander Ovechkin, and other NHL superstars compete for national pride rather than professional contracts. The Dream Team concept that had transformed Olympic basketball was now applied to hockey. The decision created complicated dynamics. NHL teams worried about injury risks to their valuable players. Insurance questions arose, and the disruption to the regular season created scheduling challenges. Yet the quality of Olympic hockey improved dramatically. The rivalry games between traditional hockey powers became even more intense, and the tournament took on greater significance in the hockey world. NHL participation continued for several Winter Olympics before the league temporarily withdrew, demonstrating the ongoing tension between professional sports leagues and Olympic ideals of national representation. 44. At the first Winter Olympics in 1924, every single one of the 16 events took place outdoors, exposed to whatever weather conditions nature provided. Figure skaters performed on open-air rinks where wind could disrupt their spins and snowfall could reduce visibility. Speed skaters raced on natural ice that could soften if temperatures rose. Ski jumpers launched themselves into mountain air without any of the controlled conditions modern athletes expect. This was winter sport in its purest form, athletes competing directly against both opponents and the elements. Today, the situation has reversed almost completely. Nearly all ice events, figure skating, speed skating, ice hockey, curling, take place in climate-controlled indoor arenas where temperature, humidity, and ice conditions can be precisely managed. The transformation reflects both technological capability and changing expectations about fair competition. Indoor venues eliminate weather as a variable, ensuring that competition results reflect athletic ability rather than who got lucky with conditions. They also make the Winter Olympics more reliable and predictable for television broadcasting, which demands certainty about when events will occur. Yet something has been lost in this shift, that direct connection to winter's unpredictability, the sense that athletes are testing themselves against nature itself rather than just against each other in controlled environments. 45. The 2026 Winter Olympics in Milano Cortina, Italy, will face a challenge that would have seemed absurd to earlier games. Organizers expect to need more than 3 million cubic yards of artificial snow despite hosting the Games in the Italian Alps, one of Europe's premier natural winter sport regions. This staggering number reflects the reality of climate change impacting winter sports. The Alps have experienced significant warming over recent decades, reducing natural snowfall reliability and shortening the snow season. Even in regions that historically had abundant snow, organizers can no longer count on nature to cooperate with Olympic schedules. The artificial snow requirement for Milano Cortina 2026 represents an enormous environmental and financial burden. Snowmaking requires massive amounts of water and energy, raising questions about the sustainability of future Winter Olympics. Each cubic yard of artificial snow needs hundreds of gallons of water pumped from reservoirs or rivers, then blown through energy-intensive machines that create snow crystals when temperatures permit. The process is expensive, resource-intensive, and somewhat ironic, hosting a winter sports celebration while relying almost entirely on manufactured winter conditions. This reality forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the long-term viability of the Winter Olympics as global temperatures continue rising. 46. According to research by Climate Central Cortina d'Ampezzo, the Italian resort co-hosting the 2026 Winter Olympics has warmed by approximately 6.4 degrees Fahrenheit, or 3.6 degrees Celsius, since it last hosted the Winter Olympics in 1956. That's a dramatic temperature increase in just 7 decades. The warming has practical consequences. Cortina now experiences 41 fewer freezing days annually compared to 1956. Think about what that means for winter sports. 41 fewer days each year when temperatures stay below freezing. 41 fewer days when natural snow accumulates and persists. 41 fewer days when outdoor ice stays solid. The transformation affects not just the Olympics, but the entire winter tourism economy that alpine communities depend upon. Yet ski seasons have shortened, snowfall patterns have changed, and the reliable winter conditions that made Cortina a world-class winter destination in the 1950s can no longer be taken for granted. This warming trend isn't unique to Cortina, it's happening across alpine regions and mountain ranges worldwide. The comparison between 1956 and 2026 provides a stark, measurable illustration of climate change's impact on specific locations over a human lifetime, making abstract global temperature increases concrete and local. 47. A sobering study from researchers at the University of Waterloo projects that by the 2050s, just a few decades from now, only about 10 to 12 cities worldwide may have sufficiently reliable climate conditions to host the Winter Olympics without extensive use of artificial snow. The research examined historical climate data and future warming projections to determine which previous and potential host cities would remain viable for winter sports. Cities that successfully hosted Winter Olympics in the past, places like Sochi, Russia, or Vancouver, Canada, which already dealt with temperature challenges, would likely no longer be suitable. Even traditionally cold locations are experiencing reduced snow reliability. The study suggests that the Winter Olympics may eventually be limited to a small number of high-altitude or far northern locations where cold temperatures and natural snow remain dependable. This potential geographic constraint raises profound questions about the future of the Winter Olympics. Would the Games become a rotational event among just a handful of suitable locations? Would we accept Winter Olympics that rely almost entirely on artificial conditions? Or will the Winter Games need fundamental reimagining to remain viable in a warming world? The projection transforms the Winter Olympics from a celebration of global winter sport into a potentially endangered institution, threatened by the same climate changes affecting ecosystems and communities worldwide. 48. Finnish ski jumper Toni Nieminen became the youngest male Winter Olympic champion in history when he won gold in the team large hill event at the 1992 Albertville Games at age 16 years and 261 days. He also won an individual gold in the large hill event at the same Olympics. Nieminen's youth was remarkable. He was competing against adults in a sport that demands not just athletic ability, but extraordinary courage. Ski jumping requires athletes to launch themselves down steep ramps, achieve speeds of 60 miles per hour, and then soar through the air for distances exceeding 300 feet, all while maintaining the precise body position that maximizes lift and distance. The margin between successful jump and dangerous crash is measured in subtle adjustments of body angle and timing. That a 16-year-old could master this under Olympic pressure, competing against more experienced jumpers, speaks to exceptional talent and mental fortitude. Nieminen's achievement came during an era before age restrictions were implemented in most Winter Olympic sports. His record as youngest male champion has stood for over 3 decades and, like some other age records, may never be broken due to minimum age requirements now in place. He represents a moment when teenage prodigies could compete at the highest levels of Winter Olympics without the protections we now consider necessary. 49. At the 1988 Calgary Winter Olympics, four brothers from Mexico's Tames family competed together in the bobsled event, setting a Guinness World Record for the most siblings competing in a single Olympic event. Alfonso, Agustin, Gerardo, and Roberto Tames represented Mexico in four-man bobsled, a sport that requires explosive pushing power to launch the sled, then perfect teamwork as the crew tucks inside and navigates the icy track at speeds approaching 90 miles per hour. The fact that four brothers from Mexico, not exactly a bobsled powerhouse nation, made it to the Olympics at all is impressive. Mexico doesn't have natural bobsled tracks or deep winter sports traditions, meaning the Tames brothers had to seek training opportunities elsewhere and overcome significant logistical and financial obstacles to even qualify for the Games. They didn't medal, but their achievement transcended results. The image of four brothers representing their country together, sharing the Olympic experience as a family unit, captured something beautiful about the Olympics, the idea that participation and representation matter beyond podium finishes. The Guinness World Record recognizes their unique family achievement, ensuring that the Tames brothers' story remains part of Olympic history even though they didn't bring home medals. 50. Until 1992, the Summer and Winter Olympics were held in the same calendar year, creating an Olympic year that happened every 4 years with a massive concentration of global athletic attention. But after the Albertville Winter Games and Barcelona Summer Games both occurred in 1992, the International Olympic Committee made a significant scheduling change. They decided to alternate Summer and Winter Games every 2 years, with each occurring on its traditional 4-year cycle, but staggered. This meant the next Winter Olympics came just 2 years later in 1994 in Lillehammer, Norway, followed by the Summer Games in 1996 in Atlanta. The change transformed the Olympic landscape in several important ways. It spread Olympic attention more evenly across time, rather than concentrating it in 1 year every 4 years. It gave the Winter Olympics their own spotlight instead of competing with Summer Games for media coverage and public attention. It created a more consistent Olympic presence in global sports culture, with an Olympics happening every other year instead of a long 3-year gap between Olympic events. The scheduling shift also had commercial benefits. Television networks, sponsors, and host cities could focus resources on one Games at a time rather than managing both in a single year. This decision fundamentally altered how the world experiences the Olympics, turning them from a once every 4 years phenomenon into a more regular fixture of the international sports calendar. And there you have it. 50 curiosities about the Olympic Winter Games, spanning a full century of competition, controversy, triumph, and transformation. Remember, the Winter Olympics represent more than just athletic competition. They're a window into how we organize international cooperation, how we adapt to changing environments, how we balance tradition with innovation, and how individual humans can achieve things that seem almost impossible. Take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed this journey through Winter Olympic history, drop a comment below with your favorite curiosity from today's list, or tell me what topic you'd love to see explored in a future video. Thank you so much for spending this time with me tonight. Stay curious and never stop learning. I'll see you in the next video.